You ever had that feeling of whether you're burnt out, whether you're overwhelmed, under recovered, and just not sure where you should go? Today's podcast, we're going to be talking about our strategy of push, pull, and pivot as to how to understand where you are right now and what's the best strategy to move forward towards your goals without losing sight of what's important to you. Nath, welcome back to the pod.
That was a very good intro, Jacob. Very good. Made me genuinely excited and goosebumps. If I didn't have a jumper on, you'd see him. I think this is really cool. I think it's something that you and I are very passionate about, talking purpose and then, that strategy around do we push, do we pull back, do we pivot? And hopefully today we can both give the listeners some strategies they can use or even some self-reflection where they can look at their outputs and maybe look at their life and be able to make some decisions that helps them get fired up and moving forward.
And I think that there's probably a key thing to distinguish here is like the experience and the feelings are going to be the same for people, but what got you there is probably what matters. So it's being able to look at those pieces there because your body doesn't understand where the stress is coming from. It just understands stress. So for some people, like we work with a range of people, like the everyday parents who are juggling career, they're juggling the stress at work, they're juggling the stress at home. When they get home, they've got their kids to run around after, and their baby's not sleeping well at night. They're trying to be on top of their nutrition. They're hungry because they're dieting and they're trying to get back in shape again. And then they've got a little bit of training there as well. They've got a bit more of a juggle versus there is also the guys that we work with that are our like elite boxers and some of the elite sports. And these guys are feeling the same symptoms, but it's as a result of how much they're doing in one aspect there. And they do have a goal, the big goal that they're working towards, and they might need different outcomes off the back end of that. And that's why this strategy comes in handy, is like trying to understand where you are right now and what's the right moves forward. So
100%.
let's dive into some of the feelings that people might experience where they're in this here. Like, how would they know that they're at this stage of where they're feeling burnt out?
Yeah, I think it's a lack of confidence on the outcome being achieved or their ability to get to the point where the outcome is achieved. And it could also be a combination or lack of clarity. And with the clarity, I guess it's the path in front of them. It's like, is this creating a return? And can I clearly see how I can continually take this next step on this path to get this? I think where it gets to, they get to a point where they're not clear, they're not confident, there's uncertainties around how do I keep moving forward with this? And then I think that creates that feeling of burnout where it's like, I can't maintain the output, the return's not there, or I'm not confident the return's coming. So then I can't just stay at this intensity for no reason for a long period of time. I think that's for parents, career, athletes. It's like, am I going too fast with no end in sight or confidence that it's coming?
And I think there's a big part of that there. And one of the things that you talk about a lot with the team is like purpose in the process.
Yeah,
You've got to be able to
100%.
see like why are the things that you're doing, like are they actually moving the needle for you? And then if they are, it's a lot easier to grind your way through those things. Like if you understand that piece there, it's like, all right, cool. It might be stress at work, but it's like this project is going to get us to this point here, which is going to move us closer to what we want for the business, the family, all of those things there. And yes, it's temporary too. It's only going to be up until this point in time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like versus if something feels never ending, it's going to be more overwhelming there. And there's obviously a lot of pieces, and it's going to be finding that balance of what's too much or what just needs capacity building too. Because sometimes it's not necessarily the thing. It's just, you're stretching yourself and you're going to be feeling at the edge of this here until you build your capacity to handle more.
Yeah.
And that's obviously when we get into our push. So I guess like when we are looking at different examples here, like what's the differences that you're going to see between, say, the person who should push and who should pivot?
Good question, Jake. I think the person that doesn't have the right reasoning to what they're pushing towards is a lot of the time where a pivot comes up. So whether it's that the outcome they're looking for is being put on them from someone else, or they're not really clear on why they're doing the thing and it's not giving a return, I truly believe burnout it's like an equation. It's like an output to inputs coming back in return. And when you don't have that meaning or purpose in that driving factor, like obviously you and I can push headfirst through walls with Newstrength because it means a lot to us. Like a good example is like I'm running on 3 hours sleep, still got up, trained at 4, ran the 2 classes of 5:30 and 6:30. Obviously, have the potty. Had to go back and do drop-offs because of the change with grandparents. Like all of those things, and it's a lot easier to do that with the purpose and with the meaning behind that. So I think a pivot needs to come up when you're like, do I even really care about this outcome and why am I doing this in the first place? I think a lot of the time that comes up. Or potentially, on the other hand, someone's run into a particular roadblock. So they're still attached to the outcome. They still want this thing, but that original pathway forward or process has come to a halt. And it's like, okay, cool, we need to pivot. Doesn't mean we have to change the outcome we're moving towards, but this current structure or this current path or this current strategy is not working how we want it to work. So it's time to pivot.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's also pieces like sometimes you do need more of a push. Like I know when we do talk in training sense for a lot of our clients, it's like often it is going to be uncomfortable getting started.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you should pull back on it. Like, oh, I don't know whether is it too much taking this on? It's like it might feel like it's too much right now because you haven't done anything for the last 5 years. So yes, you're gonna be sore afterwards. And yeah, we could scale it back a little bit less, but are we gonna form the habits that are gonna lead to the long-term progress there? Like this is something we both have changed our minds on over the last few years. It's like we used to be very big on the sustainable, like let's get started let's just do 1 day a week in the gym to get started because you haven't trained before and we don't want to overwhelm you with too much new stuff. But what happens when you only do that 1 day and maybe it's a half an hour session because that's all you can probably handle right now and recover from. But that person never gets the momentum to get going, and then because they don't get the momentum to actually get rolling forward, to see some progress, to get excited about it, they kind of then end up spinning their wheels and don't go to where they want to go to in the end, and they end up falling off the wagon and quitting there.
Yeah.
Now we're on the side, like we're still, let's pull on the intensity, but let's push on the frequency. Let's get you in the gym. Let's get you forming the habits there. Let's make this a challenge for the next 4 weeks. That's how our strong dad transformation, our strong mum transformation come about. Like we used to be very not soft on the front end from a perspective of making it like dulled down, but soft in terms like let's just start easy, let's build our way up. And now it's like, all right, well, let's build from a space that's actually going to make this a lasting change. And yes, it's going to require some commitment from you, but we're going to take it initially. This is a push process. Like it's going to have to, if nothing changes, nothing changes.
Yeah, and a push creates belief. I think there's a strong correlation between push and belief. And I think another thing that I've learned, and who knows, I might change my mind down the track. Normally it's a push. It's just what are we pushing? And sometimes, like you said before, Jake, and touched on, like we could be pushing frequency, but not pushing intensity at that same time. So if we can do a push, or it could be we're pushing recovery and nutrition, we're not pushing training, but we're still pushing something because the thing we're pushing is generally what's creating the returns that we need to have our momentum or acceleration towards the outcome. And like I said before, if that person or individual's emotionally attached for the right reasons to the outcome and there's purpose in it, then that process is still forward moving, even though whilst we're using this like little mixer gauge of push and pull with different aspects of their journey, it's still overall it's a push. It's just what are we pushing? And that's that continual belief creation, which creates more momentum. And I think that helps avoid that B word that we spoke about before, burnout. We can keep moving forward.
Yeah, and some of this, like in the push, is going to be like an emotional engagement strategy too. Like we're looking at like, all right, we obviously we've talked about already. Like we did a marathon earlier this year, and like that there is a push of like it's a challenge. It's exciting because like it's something we'd never done before, and obviously we've been around this. Like I've been training since I think I was 13, 14. Like I'm 32 now. It's nearly 20 years that I've been training for, and I still only kind of look like a lift out of that whole time. But what we are talking about in that there is like, when you've been doing something for 20 years, you need something to spark some fire in your belly. You need something to make it exciting again and re-engage yourself. And sometimes if you're feeling unmotivated, maybe it's not that you need to pull back or you need to change something. You just need to push something. You need to make something that's a challenge for you. Because if you don't have that, and personally, that's probably why I've done Strongmans, high roxes, marathons.
Yeah, you were a hybrid athlete way before it was cool.
Way before it was cool.
Way before.
Because all of these things, because I've been around it for so long, it made it interesting for the training. It gave me a short-term North Star that I could push towards and go, all right, cool. If I want to do this, I need to become more than what I am right now in the next little phase to get there. And then that creates little context like you off the back of that. If like we decided to do a marathon, like obviously we started when we first got to know each other, we started training together. And
Yeah.
that was where a lot of our initial bond and realizing that we're into the same things, all the connections started from there. But then as Newstrength grew, like how often we would train together, it really got pulled back down
Yeah.
a fair bit because it's
It
like
does not happen
the
very often at all.
the kids, the balance of all that. But it then went, okay, cool, Sunday's run day and we can both do that because we're both pushing
Yeah.
for this together. So it does give you the opportunity. It's like, all right, how can you create accountability or bonds alongside that can help in that push there? And it might just be learning how do we hack the push rather than trying to avoid it.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really important point that you just made, and I think I hope the listeners can take that in. If you need to rewind it on your device, whatever it may be, I think when we're talking about that, and Jake's mentioning like where we're pushing or being specific with that push, I think that's really important because a lot of the time people lose a lot of belief in the pullback. So they'll go on this journey and they go, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to work towards this goal. Like we're about to head into 2026. I'm sure there's going to be an infinite amount of New Year's resolutions. And I think the importance of being like a bit tactical with this push is a lot of the time, like there's nothing wrong with pulling back in the right areas for the right reasons. But I think a lot of people pull back and never push forward. And they sit here, and then what this does, it's like a lack of belief creation, and then they're less likely to try more things. I think it's important with that push. It needs to be specific, but it creates belief, and it helps you, for lack of a better term, fail forward, and you can maintain this momentum as you go.
Yeah, a pullback needs to be a slingshot, right? Like
100%.
I think that's where when we talk about and the really good indication for a pull is often that person that is pushing the envelope so much that they start to experience that burnout, the lack of motivation when they normally don't have any issue going in training. And then they're starting to go, I'm constantly sore, my joints are starting, it's no longer muscle soreness, it's my joints, my tendons are starting to give me issues. I've got these like overtraining symptoms popping up. I'm always hungry, I'm not sleeping well, the low libido or those sort of things that pop up, like those are things that like when that person is pushing the envelope, they might need to pull, but the pull isn't to stop them from doing it. The pull is to help them go back on that journey again.
Yeah.
And I know like...
and you'll simultaneously push something. Like you'll push better sleeping habits, better nutrition or caloric input. Like there's things that you push to keep moving them forward. So I think it's using that in a way that maintains momentum. Like, and I think that's probably what the difference is now that I'm talking about it more is like we use that pullback, like you said, like a slingshot, but realistically the momentum doesn't change if you zoom out far enough. It's just like that little pit stop to keep the wheels moving fast and it's necessary.
Yeah, and sometimes that's just a sign of poor planning. The pull might be a sign of, okay, because quality training, programming, planning, like you should already be planning to have pulls in that phase. You're already going to have deloads, whether that is a complete deload or whether that's like where you're just tinkering around where there's like a partial deload on some things while you're pushing other things and so on. And that's the magic of programming or planning and structure and also knowing where somebody who's done it before.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you've done it before and you can actually game plan that there, that's a lot easier to manage those things. When you haven't done it before or you don't have the insight of somebody that is there, then you're going to come across these experiences more and more often that you do need to like force a pivot or have an intentional pullback because you're learning on the fly.
Yeah.
It's building the plane in the air. And when you're doing those sort of things, it's like, it's probably going to pop up. It's reasonable and you need to go with that there. But when you do have the insight of somebody else that can help you on that journey, a lot of it is then like, okay, we can just pivot across to like, well, let's tweak this. While we do that, we're going to push this envelope here. And then that's going to give us the result that we're after.
Yeah, cool. And that's obviously in a training aspect. What about life?
I think it's
because I think that's where majority like athletes will face burnout from training specifically, but I'd say 99.99999% of people do not train hard enough to experience that. What you're talking about, like that's really unique and specific, and it might just be niggles and things like that through other compounding stresses, but I think it'll be important to touch on for the listeners the life burnout and the juggle and those things as well.
Yeah, I think the first piece is you got to figure out what are the non-negotiables. Like, what's the things that you actually absolutely cannot pull back on? Because like, if you're a father, you can't pull back on being a father just because it's overwhelming. Like, your kids still want you there. You could. I remember, and we've talked about this before. It was like the day that I hurt my back from trying to push Strongman, and then I got home, and the first thing that Millie did, she had her arms up at me. She was like, "Dada, Dada," and I couldn't pick her up. I was like, it took me I probably took 15 minutes to try to like actually get her up, find a position that wasn't in pain, so I could give her a cuddle, because that's what she needed. And like, you can't opt out of that there. Obviously, like if you're absolutely
You can, but
debilitated,
you'd be a dick.
yeah. There's Nate's little snippet again that we're going to put on Instagram. He hates it when I make him stand out like that. But it's like those things are non-negotiables.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
and training and movement should be one of those things for you, but at what degree does that come into? So maybe you don't need to train 6 days a week when you do have this big deadline coming up at work, or it's that season where you are needed more at home. So it shouldn't be, all right, well, I'm just going to stop this completely. It's like, all right, what's the minimal effective dose on this so that I can get what I need out of it there and then keep moving forward? And that might be the pullback. It's like the pull isn't stopped completely. The pull is going, all right, well, like we both used to train like 6-7 days a week. Now it's probably 3 to 4, sneak in a little bit extra on the weeks that you can, right?
Yeah. If you include a run, it'll be 5.
Yeah, I'm probably the same. 3 or 4 plus a run. We don't really count running.
Yeah.
Sorry, Claire, running's not training. Way to offend the listeners. No, so in that way there, then it's like, well, where do you find that balance there of like, what is the right thing for that there? And for me, that was the transition from strongman into general training again. Like, I didn't believe that I had the mental bandwidth, the emotional bandwidth, or the time to be able to do all of that stuff of like where I was competing at a national level, but I knew there was still a gap between me and where I wanted to be in that there. But at the same time, we had Newstrength was growing and it required more of me, and our family had grown too. And I knew that it was going to need more time out of me on a daily basis, and I couldn't put in 10, 15 hours a week of training just for strongman. And that was what it was going to require for me to take the next steps and to go to the next level. And I had to look and go, what's the most important thing for me right now? What's the most important thing in this season of life? And it was Newstrength doing what we want to do and the vision that we have for that there. And it was having the time with the family, particularly at the time where they're small kids and you only get so long with them when they're small kids, and before they're off wanting to go and play with their friends instead of hanging out with mum and dad. And those things were the ultimate, like the most important things. So I had to go, well, for right now, the next phase is going to be, I'm going to step back from that being how I train, and I'm going to find the minimal effective dose that is going to support all of the other pieces to be functioning. And there is times that I'm sure that at some point in my life, I'm going to go back to where I'm excited to go. I'm going to push all in on this thing for a bit of time and put more energy and emphasis to it. And that's just part of that juggle there, is how do you figure those things out and piece them together?
Absolutely. What a pivot, though. From strong man to strong dad.
We do have
Jacob Hodson.
those two side-by-side photos. There's a snippet in the back of the 102 kilo Jacob at New South Wales Strongest Man a couple of years ago, ready for stones, and I was looking very, very juicy, very round, chunky boy. Jacob. And then I got abs for the first time in my life after that.
Yeah, you did, with the most amount of responsibility too, might I add.
We're on our way back there
stresses.
now too. We're on our way back there now too. I was lowest weight for the shred this morning actually, so
we're getting sick.
We'll hit 85 by Hawaii. This will probably come out the week we're in Hawaii too, so I'll be there, and this is the accountability. I'm making the call now.
Yeah, I'm 88. If I hit 88, it'll be the lightest I've been in 12 years.
So
it's 13 actually.
And ultimately, I think we covered a bit of the pivot there. Like the pivot is just
that's a pivot. That's a perfect
redefining,
pivot. That's
changing direction.
Yeah.
How do we then game plan that? And it should be around what's important to you, what's exciting for you. Those are the pieces that we want to go towards for that there.
Yeah. I think, honestly, I think that example makes it so clear. Like you done the pivot at the right time because of what was the most meaningful and what was the most purposeful for you. He said if you stayed in that strongman and tried to maintain that juggle, I fucking bet you would have burnt out. You would have burned out 100%, and something would have broken more than your back. So with that, like that's such a beautiful example of when to pivot, and then what happens there, you maintain forward momentum and you don't have burnout because you have balance through that pivot, and that's the perfect time to use a pivot. It's like, where is this trajectory going? And for you, like, I reckon for both of us, and I'm happy to hear external opinions, I think we probably slightly overuse push, where we're just push, but you never know unless you're there. So to go through that example, I think that's really beautiful with that example of strongman and then being strong dad and moving forward. Like that's a purposeful pivot that allows you to maintain fulfillment along your journey, and that's what avoids burnout. because you have that meaning through that first initial starting, I guess, trajectory to where you want to go.
Yeah, I think that's the ultimate piece there, and I think that's what I'm going to wrap up on. Is like burnout is a real thing, but often it's not the thing that you're doing; it's the purpose behind them that matters. And if you're in that case where you're feeling like you're pushing the envelope, you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling stressed, you're starting to lose that motivation there. If you can look at it from the lens of like, what's the purpose for you right now? Is it that you do need to push because of the purpose is like you need to go through this phase, and sometimes the only way to get through where you are right now is through where you are right now.
Yeah, can't go around it.
The only way out is through. If you're in that point there, then the right thing to do is push, and maybe there's a little bit of a pullback to slingshot you. Maybe there is just some tactical changes, but you are still on the same journey. Or if you are at that point there, like I was, maybe the right move is pivot. And I think that's the thing that I want you guys as listeners to think of right now is what is the right move for what's important to you, what are the non-negotiables, and then how can you reframe around that? Whether that's push, pull, pivot, it doesn't matter as long as you're moving towards the vision for yourself that you have and for your family.
Absolutely, and I think a lot of these things are going to get touched on in our next episode. So if you wrap this one up, make sure you tune into the next one. I think they'll go beautifully together. But if you are someone that feels burnt out and you just feel stuck, like a lot of the times through my conversations with people or my own experience, burnout's a feeling of stuck. I think you need to probably go back and look at like, where am I going? Why am I going there? And how meaningful is that to me? And if it lacks that, like if it's a fucking shitty job that you don't want to do, like that's at the end of the day, it's your decision and your outputs. If there's not many coming back in to fill the cup back up, you're probably going to get to that point. If it's a different trajectory that you're going through, it probably has to take that self-reflection on, this is where I'm at, this is where I'm going. Is that actually where I want to go? And I do truly believe for us, and I know for me, Jacob, like what makes, like last night was a shit show. Essentially, fell asleep putting the kids to bed, had to wake back up. I had work that just had to get done. I couldn't leave till tomorrow. It was 11 o'clock. Long story short, Sarah accidentally unplugged Lenny's heater from his fish tank. One of his fish died, but then the kids overfilled it with the filter off, so it was going to have an absolute chaotic morning of all the fish gone. So I had to do a water change at 11:30. Sarah's in bed. She's on call. She gets rang just before 12. She has to go up to the John for a certain situation. She says, I don't know if I'll be back in the morning. You might have to get someone to cover the shift. So I'm in bed at 12:30. Alarm goes off at 3:30. Get up, go check if she's there. She's there. Awesome. I still get to train and the day runs as normal. Like obviously output-wise, and this isn't to talk about myself, it's to talk about the mission and the purpose and the things that are most meaningful to me. And I know you too, Jake, where it's easier to apply yourself in those situations that would be draining. And yes, they're hard, but the cup filling is happening simultaneously because of the purpose and that projection to where I know I want to go, and it's filling up my cup along the way. So I think for anyone that's stuck, I think you need to sit with yourself for a little bit and think, where am I going? Why am I going there? And do I just want to pivot and change this trajectory? Because if I don't pivot, I'm going to continually be on this burnout cycle because I'm not on a path that's actually fulfilling for me long term.
Love it. That's nailed it to wrap us up on it. That is us with the Newstrength Way podcast. Again, we will be back next week where we're talking all things the juggle.